High in the halls of the kings who are gone, Jenny would dance with her ghosts, the ones she had lost and the ones she had found, and the ones who had loved her the most, the ones who'd been gone for so very long. She couldn't remember their names. They spun her around on the damp old stones, spun away all her sorrow and pain. And she never wanted to leave, never wanted to leave. Never wanted to leave, never wanted to leave, never wanted to leave, never wanted to leave.
The surprisingly beautiful voice of Podrick Payne. One of the many highlights in what I personally feel is one of the greatest episodes in Game of Thrones history. When we talk about some of the series' best episodes, we usually talk about Hardhome or Battle of the Bastards, Blackwater, Watchers on the Wall, these big, sprawling action set pieces with, bloody battles and characters are dying left and right. And this stands in stark contrast to episodes of that ilk. We didn't get any death. We didn't get any fighting, no battles, nothing like that. It was just great character moments, subtle human emotion. I have to say that I would say that the episode had just a ton of emotional weight to it. Would be the best way that I could put it. And obviously, part of that is due to the fact that we know that next week, speaking of large action set pieces, we're going to get the biggest ever. Not in just the show's history, not in the history of television, but in the history of film ever. This is going to be bigger than the Battle of Helm's Deep, bigger than anything we've seen before. So it stands to reason that we are going to likely lose a lot of these great characters that we've come to know and love over the last near decade. So yeah, that's what makes the episode so special. I thought on every level, it was just executed almost perfectly. Okay. I don't think there was a single scene that I felt disengaged from. I was invested from the beginning all the way to the end. And so I just wanted to briefly talk about really quickly what some of the highlights were to me. I'm not going to do like a scene by scene breakdown like I did with Winterfell. I'll be here all fucking night doing that. But later toward the end of the video, I'm going to get into some season, or some episode 3 predictions. So real quick, let's just start with, we have the scene with Jaime, which I thought was a great way to start things off. Excuse me. I'm drinking one too many energy drinks here and I'm feeling a little gassy. Pardon me. I know this is professional as hell, but you know what? I'm too lazy to do any editing, so it's staying in. Anyway, Jaime Lannister on trial, as it were, at Winterfell. He's facing off against Dany. He's facing off against Jon Snow, Sansa. But he's got his brother there and he's got Brienne there. And not so much thanks to his brother, but thanks to Brienne, Sansa, Jon, they're convinced to let him stay. They make their peace with him. Obviously, Sansa trusts Brienne with her life, as she should. That's good enough for them. Not so good for Dany. She doesn't seem too pleased with it, but and we'll get into a little more about her in a bit. What I liked about it is the fact that Jaime refused to apologize. I liked the fact that he didn't come with his tail tucked between his legs. And he explained what I think he needed to explain. Look, I am not going to apologize for defending the realm against a mad king. And I'm not going to apologize for attacking your dad in the streets when your mom abducted my fucking brother, okay? We were at war. And yeah, when we go back to the first season, early on, we view, Ned Stark is our hero, and Jaime Lannister is clearly the villain. The little kid comes up there, catches him boning his sister right before he fires him out a fucking window, and yeah, we're not left with the impression that, this is a good guy, I like him. No, from our perspective, the guy's a fucking piece of shit. However, when we stop and consider the fact that if Bran were to escape and go and tell King Robert or Ned or anyone what he saw in that that tower, that means Cersei's going to get put to the fucking sword. It means the certain death of the woman that he loves. So in that moment, Jaime's a pragmatist. Out the window you go. And their conversation in front of the Godswood, Bran pretty much says as much. Hey, you were defending your family, and it is true. I mean, I will concede that he didn't seem too busted up about the fact that he had done it. But hey, as Jaime puts it, he is a changed man, at least a little bit. He at least feels bad about it now. Okay, so yeah, I thought that was a great scene, and we'll leave it at that for Jaime for now. But I think the best scene, we'll just go right back to Jaime. Fuck it. The best scene in the episode, I thought, was the fireplace scene. You start with Tyrion and Jaime reminiscing about the old days, talking about their dad. Soon they're joined by Podrick and Brienne, and then Davos and Tormund, and what a fucking gang of characters that is, right? I mean, you got the Lannister brothers who have a little bit of shit in common, right? But, I mean, between the rest of them, I mean, I couldn't think of a group of characters that have less in common. And I have to say that in an episode of subtleties, like I said, that's the thing that makes, this just the human moments, and a lot of subtle, just bits of relatable, I don't know, relatability. I'm kind of all over the place here. We have the least subtle character stealing the show. Fucking Tormund Giantsbane, from the moment he arrives on screen, tackling Jon out of left field and immediately inquiring about, the big woman's still here. And then just fucking, I forget what it is that he says to Brienne, but he's giving her the googly eyes, and she's immediately off-put by his presence as he fucking goes into the story about how he got his name, suckling at a giant's teat. Just the look of mild amusement and confusion on Jaime's face, and then this the look of utter disgust from Brienne, and then, like, even Davos. Maybe I will take that drink. Man, what a great scene, though. I mean, Tormund, it could have easily overshadowed the entire moment, but it worked. It worked on so many levels. Just from, like I said, one of my favorite things to do in life is to go up north camping, sit around a bonfire with my friends, maybe some strangers, having some drinks, exchanging stories. And so that part of me, I felt like I was right there with that crew, enjoying that moment. And I enjoyed Tyrion's optimism. Kind of, they're having a few chuckles over the fact that this is probably their last night on Earth. Yet he's, hey, you know what? I think we might live. I don't know. Just everything about that scene just did it for me. Especially, of course, once Brienne gets knighted, that conversation comes up, and when Jaime decides, let me bestow this honor upon you. It's the least he could do after all they've been through together, and after all she's done for him. Just what a beautiful scene. Everything from the soundtrack playing underneath it, to the words coming out of Jaime's mouth, to that beautiful smile on Gwendolyn Christie's face as she stands up, Tormund clapping, Tyrion raising a glass. I was all caught up in the emotion of it. It was fucking excellent. So yeah, that was probably my favorite scene of the entire episode. And before I forget, because I this is about the second take that I've done of this. In the first take, I completely forgot to mention it. But I'd be completely remiss if I didn't bring up Sandor the Hound Clegane. Speaking of funny moments, speaking of some of my favorite characters, as great as Tormund was, I think I laughed the hardest when Sandor, when he said to Beric, I hope you're not about to bust into a sermon, because Thoros isn't here, and the Lord of Light is going to be mighty bummed out to find out that he resurrected you 19 times, only to find out I chuck you over this fucking wall. Oh my God. Anytime you get the Hound and Beric in a scene together, there's usually some pretty quippy one-liners, and it never ceases to amuse me. But overall, that was a great moment too, that he and Arya shared together on the battlements. This was the reunion that I wanted to see. I was a little underwhelmed last week when they didn't spend too much time together. But I really liked this scene. And then speaking of Arya, of course, we had a few, moments with Gendry. I don't really want to talk about that too much because, look, I'll be honest. I was just like probably most of you listening or watching. I was like recoiling immediately. Like, no, I don't want to see Macy Williams' fucking tits. God damn it. Like, I know she's 22, but I still view her as like a 13 or 14-year-old on the show. And, but you know what? Overall, it did work. It was a great scene because, again, this is one of those human things. There's these real, relatable moments. It's like, this could be our last night on Earth. I want to know what it's like. She's been infatuated with Gendry from the very beginning. And so it was a nice scene overall in terms of what it meant. Although, when we look back at her later, she doesn't look too pleased with... I don't know what's going through her head, but it doesn't look good. Maybe she should have sacked up with Podrick instead, because he seems to certainly have a different effect on the ladies. But hey, whatever. What are you going to do? I have to mention briefly Sansa and Dany. Of course, Dany comes in to extend an olive branch. Sansa accepts. Everything looks to be going smooth, and then... the future comes up. What happens after we defeat the Night King? What happens after we defeat Cersei? These are, by the way, two fucking tasks that are quite, it's a pretty tall order, and you're already looking to the future. You're looking past this, and this is what you're going to get hung up on? I don't know. Now, it makes sense, given all that Sansa has been through, retaking Winterfell. They swore they would never bow to anyone again. But now's timing, lady, timing. You're trying to kind of make peace with each other. You're gonna bring this shit up right away, and then of course Dany immediately recoils. In similar fashion, when they allowed Jaime to stay, she kind of had a poo face. Now she's got a poo face again, and it's not the first or last poo face that she gives off in the episode. We'll get to the last one in a few minutes here, but yeah, I don't know. Look, as far as Dany is concerned, you've been trying to rule the Seven Kingdoms for God knows how long at this point. You've been surrounded by the likes of Tyrion, Varys, Jorah, and you're trying to be the queen, and you haven't learned anything about politics? I hate politicians. They're slimy, they're fucking weasels, and they'll say whatever the fuck they got to say to get your vote, but, that's for a reason, sometimes if you got to build bridges, it's got to be built on some fucking bullshit. Just to tell her whatever you think she wants to hear, so you can be happy and go face off the fucking Night King together, and that's the other thing. I'll just segue right into the fact that, obviously Jon's trying to avoid Dany throughout this entire episode, because he doesn't want to fucking drop the truth bomb, Sam's pressing him about it. We see that on the wall, which that was another good scene, that I'm going to kind of gloss over here, but, yeah, finally, he can't avoid her anymore. He can't run away from her. He's in the crypt having one of his somber fucking solo moments, and, Dany approaches, and then the conversation about Lyanna starts. Well, there's no fucking avoiding it now. I guess I'll fucking tell her. I would have continued to fucking avoid that issue until after maybe the Night King is dealt with. It seemed like that would have been the smart play, but we know that's not really what Jon Snow is all about. We've seen him make kind of on the surface dumb fucking decisions for the sake of honor before, so whatever, you know what you're going to get with him. And then, of course, here comes the poo face again, Dany recoiling, and that means you have a claim to the Iron Throne, and has it occurred to you that your brother and friend might be full of shit? It's not the reaction I wanted on it, Dany, but yeah, it's the one that we expected. This goal of hers, as she mentions to Sansa, that has been her goal all her fucking life, the Iron Throne. It's a big deal, okay? It's evidently it's a bigger deal to her than the Night King, even though she's seen the Night King at his full power, and she knows what he can do. She knows what's at stake. She's seen him take one of her dragons out. But anyway, I don't know. It's just, I think that obviously the show, they want to plant seeds of doubt in our mind. They want to add that extra layer of tension throughout the battle next week. But I don't think we really need it, but whatever. I don't have such a huge problem with it. I don't know. It wasn't the smartest decision on Jon's part to even relay that information to her at this point, but damage is done. It is what it is, and so there we have it. The truth bomb dropped on Dany, and of course there's no reaction at all about the fact that they're aunt and nephew. But I guess, hey, look, the Targaryens, medieval times, it's not such a big issue. That's evidently that's not a hurdle to climb at all. So different culture, different time. Okay, I can get past that. No suspension of disbelief required on that front. But that's about everything. Everything that's coming to mind at the moment, anyhow, in terms of what I liked about this episode and what stood out to me. So on to next week. Oh, wait, before I forget. And I guess this will be a good segue. We did get another scene from, the War Council scene. We have Bran kind of giving the explanation as to what the Night King wants, or at least what he believes the Night King wants. And they start forming their battle plans for when they arrive. The Night King wants to eliminate the three-eyed raven. He's been trying to do it over the millennia. I guess there's been an entire line of three-eyed ravens. I was completely unaware. I think that's new information. I don't even think the book readers know anything about this. But yeah, so we have an idea of what the Night King wants. We know what our characters, our heroes, are going to try to do in order to coax him out and get him to expose himself. So I have to say that my first prediction for next week, we have that little quick moment wherein Tyrion pulls up a chair after everyone clears the room and starts pressing Bran about what his journey has been like. Everything happens off screen after the chair gets pulled up. Okay, so we have been, Tyrion has been. We've been reminded that he's been making a series of blunders stretching back to last season. His loyalty has been called into question. Last week we had Sansa kind of grilling him, mocking him, saying that, I once thought you were the cleverest man I'd ever met. The spotlight has been on Tyrion for being a fucking doofus for the last month or so, or however long the time is supposed to have passed. But he's been fucking up hard, okay? We haven't seen the Tyrion of old. We haven't seen that Tyrion that was so cunning on the level of a Varys or a Baelish. Or, remember when he fucking, manipulated Pycelle, Varys, Baelish, all when it came to fucking, keeping their lips sealed to find out who the fucking squealer was. That fucking cunning, super crafty character. We haven't seen that in a while. So I expect that next week, that conversation that we don't get to see with Bran is going to pay off in some big way. We should get Tyrion returning to form next week. I'm not certain that he'll remain in the crypts. Of course, the last shot that we get of this episode, he's staring down the battlements at the army of White Walkers. So we'll see. And of course, I'm not going to get too on the nose with it. I have no idea what type of what he might have up his sleeve. I just know it's going to be something. And then we do get a look at the army, and all we really do see is the front line. All White Walkers. We don't see any whites. We don't see the Night King. I've been listening to people theorize that the Night King isn't even going to show up. He'll be flying south to King's Landing to go ahead and convert the Golden Company and everyone there into whites and kind of form a pincer move so that Jon, Dany, and the rest of our heroes will have no escape. They'll have to fight a war on two fronts, to the south and to the north. I do not subscribe to this theory. Maybe the Night King won't show up. I just don't see the Night King going off alone by himself to King's Landing. And how is he going to convert all of these? What is he going to torch them with fucking Viserion? They're not going to come back if they're all fucking torched. And as powerful as he is, the Night King alone riding on the back of a dragon is going to be completely... I don't want to say defenseless because he's the fucking Night King, but he's going to have to fight an entire, multiple armies. You got the Lannister army, you've got the Golden Company. We know that they have anti-aerial fucking weaponry. I don't know what kind of damage they could do to Viserion, but I'd imagine that it would be enough to kind of take him off the dragon, at least for a moment, and fucking do away with him. So, or at least really fuck his progress. So I don't see that happening. I think at some point the Night King will show up in the battle. I just don't think it'll be immediately right from the outset. We do get a little brief shot of Dany flying on the back of Drogon in the trailer for next week. So I imagine if she's on Drogon, it looks like she's like flying through a fucking blizzard. And we know that usually when we see snow come up, that's when, the White Walkers show up. That's one thing, but it's when the Night King shows up that the weather changes. It's when he shows up that things get from fucking bad to worse. We start seeing blizzards and shit. And there are a couple shots in the trailer where we definitely see snow falling from the sky. So I think that the Night King will be there. I don't know that Bran and everyone's plans are going to go according to plan. I don't think that it's actually going to work, their little idea. But we will see. I certainly don't think that Theon and the Ironborn are going to be the ones to stop the Night King. So we may as well get into some death predictions. I think Theon's the number one candidate to go next week. I think that, he'll die making his last stand to defend the Starks. his character arc is basically complete, okay? You have to look at what characters have basically completed their arc. You know, is their story over? We've got Theon, and then the answer is yes. Brienne of Tarth, I think her character arc is more or less complete. You know, we saw her get knighted. She's served her purpose. She served the Starks. She served Jaime. Yeah, I think Brienne's a strong candidate to get taken out as well. Tormund Giantsbane, a lot of screen time, and that's the other thing. We can look at who gets a lot of screen time and some really strong moments. That's the one thing that The Walking Dead always like to do. They'll take, usually it's like a shittier character, like a B or like a C or D tier character, give them a bunch of screen time in one episode, and then next week the rug gets pulled out from under them. So I think Tormund's another strong candidate to die. And these are characters, especially, you know, Brienne, Tormund, these are fan favorites that their death will be impactful. Jorah Mormont is another one. I kind of glossed over him in my review of the episode, but I think, you know, he had a lot of strong scenes. He's, again, another one who served his purpose. He's advised Dany the best that he can. His one job left to do is go out and defend her, and you know, like another one of these characters that has to make amends for his wrongdoings of the past. So I think he's another strong candidate. Now, there are some other candidates that would be even more impactful. Arya, I think, I have my eye on her. I don't know. I'm sure that her presence on the battlefield will definitely have an impact. I think she's going to definitely do some damage. She'll probably have some big key plays, but I'm not so sure she makes it out of this week. I think that, you know, for as much as I love Tormund and Brienne, as much as they're fan favorites, they're not one of the main characters. I think that we're getting down to the wire here. The series is coming to a close. We're going to have an episode this long, this huge. There has to be that at least one shocking moment, that one character death that really kicks us in the fucking gut. And I think Arya is a really strong candidate for that. I don't think that they can kill Jon, Dany, or Tyrion. Those three characters, I think their plot armor is too strong. They have to make it out, and they have to go deal with Cersei. Those three characters I see surviving till the very end. Sansa, I think, is another one who's pretty safe. I don't see her, you know, she's obviously not going to be in the thick of things when it comes to the battle itself. So I see Sansa being safe. Jaime is another one alongside Arya who is questionable. I think if I had to bet money, most people, at least most of us with book knowledge, tend to subscribe to the Valonqar prophecy, wherein Jaime is going to have to kill Cersei. So I think for the most part, he's probably safe, but there's no guarantee that that prophecy is going to come to pass or that we're even reading it correctly. So if we're not, Jaime could certainly be taken out next week as well. I'm trying to think who else. We got Beric. He's definitely going to fucking die. He doesn't serve much of a purpose anymore. I think the Hound makes it out because they have to give us Clegane Bowl or I'm going to rage quit the fucking show. Hound has to make it out. And I imagine that they're going to have, we see a brief snippet in the trailer where we have the Hound and Beric kind of walking the halls together, very wary. Hound's looking over his shoulder. He's got his dragonglass axe. I imagine that the Hound is going to have to get over that fear of fire. He's going to have to do something related to fire. We know that fucking, obviously, Beric and his flaming sword. I think that we're going to have to see maybe the Hound is going to have to pick up that sword after Beric gets taken down and do something with it. He's going to have probably a pretty key play here as well. So I think the Hound makes it out. Is that covering everybody? I don't know. I'm sure there are some people that I'm leaving off. Oh, Davos. 50-50 on Davos. I think he could go or he could stay. I would be happy if he stayed. I always liked him as a character. I personally feel that, you know, you see these social media games come up all the time and it's like, which Game of Thrones character are you? Play now. And it's like, I always wish I could be like, I talk about some of my favorite characters being like Tormund or the Hound, these big tough guys that can really kick ass. You know, every guy, there's a part of every guy I think who wishes they were that guy. But if I'm being honest, I think the character I relate to the most is Davos. You know, not the smartest guy in the world, certainly not a great fighter, but he's practical, he's honest, he's honorable enough. He's kind of a really relatable guy for me, and I really like him. So hopefully he makes it out, but, you know, I just don't know. Now, some other predictions for next week, some other things that are interesting to think about outside of just character deaths. They're really making a lot to do over these crypts. Sam and Gilly. How could I forget Sam and Gilly? I think they both survive. Okay, how's that? But speaking of the crypts, that's where they're going to be hiding, and they make it a big deal to point out that the crypts are the safest place. The crypts, we're going to put all the women and children down in the crypts. Yeah, where all the fucking dead people are. All the dead people that the Night King likes to resurrect. So I hear a lot of people, obviously this isn't a difficult prediction to make. You know, it's pretty obvious. You got a fucking demigod who resurrects dead bodies, and then you're putting the women and children in a basement surrounded by dead bodies. It's gonna definitely turn into a dangerous place at some point. So that's an easy prediction to make, and I'm making it. So something's gonna happen down in them crypts. I mean, maybe I'll be surprised. Who knows? But yeah, I think that the crypts are gonna wind up. It's going to be a bad hideout, and they're going to have to kind of flood out. And I don't know. Like, how do you escape the crypts? If I'm remembering correctly, I think there are some fucking secret passageways, but who knows? Anyway, another thing that's interesting to think about, we haven't seen Melisandre in a while. The last time we saw her was when she was having her conversation with Varys, who she prophesized would die, as would she. Will it be this week? Will she show up with some more red priests and priestesses, and what might their role be in the battle for the night, or the battle for spring, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, the battle at Winterfell? I imagine she's got to show up. She's got to show up, and they have to have a role to play, but I'm just finding it impossible to figure out what that might be. Another return that I'm looking forward to. We saw Ghost, a brief quick shot of him hanging out on the battlements with Jon, Ed, and Sam earlier in this episode. I'm sure that he'll be back. I'm sure that he'll fight for his friends. And I have a feeling that Nymeria and the rest of her wolf pack will also return. If you look at the trailer for the season preview, we see a lot of legs that look like horse legs. But in that mix, we also see some shorter, furrier legs that look to be a bunch of direwolves. So I think we can look for them to show up and get in on the action as well. But I don't know. As far as how they deal with the Night King, should he show up, I have no idea what they're going to do. I know we do get a quick glimpse of Jon unsheathing Longclaw in front of what looks like the Godswood. So it looks like at some point he may square off with the Night King face to face. So it's anybody's guess how that shakes down. We'll see. I think I've rambled long enough. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you guys think, any predictions you might have, and I'll look forward to seeing you. Actually, not Sunday night, but tomorrow, I'm going to be on Facebook Live with at least one guest, kind of doing like a pre-game hype show. And I'll probably copy and paste that video here on YouTube as well. After that, of course, I'll try to get back here as quickly as possible for my take on Episode 8. Excuse me. Season 8, Episode 3. It's going to be a doozy. I'll see you guys then. Until then, bye.